How you doing, Jay? Big shout out to our huge fan base. I'm glad that we have this episode. And like you said, we got this on the fly, man. Breaking news, Hall of Fame ballots. And the best I can do is wear my Mets hat since we're going to talk a little bit of baseball. We were well overdue on baseball. I mean, we're in off season. There's not much to talk about. So I know there's a big part of our fan base that was waiting for some baseball to be talked about. And the time is here.
Sometimes we have a week's full of content that we have prepared and we're ready to talk about. And then we come to realize that we record this show on Wednesdays and news just happens to break. Like while I'm on my way home, with a clear idea of what it is I want to talk about, all of a sudden we get hit with the news that the Hall of Fame inductees for 2017 were announced. And what better place to start today than with the Hall of Fame class of 2017. Packy, take it away.
Let's go, man. Hall of Fame ballots are in, the official ones.
All right. So 3 people have been named into the 2017 Baseball Hall of Fame. Jeff Bagwell, Tim Raines, and Ivan Rodriguez all selected. 3 very different storylines here. Jeff Bagwell, a player that played for 15 years in the MLB, and all of them with the same team, the Houston Astros. Just about every year that he played there, they were pretty much a respectable team. I'm not going to say good or great, but respectable. Tim Raines made his way around. I believe he's a 3-time World Series champion, 7-time All-Star. And Ivan Rodriguez, man, also a champion. Everybody knows Pudge for a very, very long time. He was known as the best catcher in baseball. I mean, basically all of the 90s and some of the 2000s. The time that I was still interested in baseball, he was the prototypical catcher. So congratulations to all of these people. I have a lot of questions about how the heck all of this voting works. Where do we even start, man? Do you have anything to say about these players?
Well, yeah, first of all, they weren't the only ones. Bud Selig also got voted in the winter meetings as an executive. So remember, executives also do go to the Hall of Fame.
No one cares.
And Bud Selig but it's actually a pretty big deal because this Bud Selig voting opens up a lot of things in the Hall of Fame. One of them being the Ivan Rodriguez vote in, and I'll get to that now. Why? I was reading on some stuff from some writers because of the Hall of Fame voting is a total mess. All right, you asked about the voting. To me, it's a total mess. It's kind of getting better now. I mean, the first reason we got to talk about this being a mess is the fact that a lot of these writers send in empty ballots. To me, that's
what the hell is up with that? I saw that. Why would you have the opportunity to vote and put in an empty ballot? Not that many this year, by the way. It looks like it was only 2.
Why are you even allowed to submit an empty ballot? I mean, somebody has to be like, bro, if you're not going to vote, then we'll just take you off the committee. I mean, God damn it. Let's be serious here. But overall, I mean, how does voting work before we get to that?
All right, go ahead.
Players need to get 332 votes, which is about 75% of the voting to get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Players are eligible to the Hall of Fame if they have at least 10 years of a baseball career, and they're available for voting 5 years after they retire. Of course, all players go through a certain screening beforehand, because obviously if you just had a 10-year mediocre career of being on the bench, you're not even going to be considered. So there has to be some previous screening before you're even put on the ballot. After 10 years on the ballot, you get taken out if you didn't make the Hall of Fame, which is kind of what happened to Tim Raines now. He was on his last year. And if you get less than 5% on any of the years, you're automatically off the ballot, which is what happened to Jorge Posada, which wasn't, I mean, I didn't think he was a Hall of Famer, but getting discarded away in his, like this in his first year available in the ballot, he only got like 3%. I think that's pretty disrespectful. The Yankees just retired his number 20. I mean, the guy was pretty good. He had about 4 rings, if I'm not mistaken. And he was a starting catcher and probably one of the best teams of the 90s. Well, obviously the best team of the 90s and one of the most storied franchises in baseball. He was a key part of that. So that's one of the reasons why voting clearly is not as good as it should be.
Well, it's not so much voting. I guess that's kind of the system, right? The how they
Yeah.
get kicked out of there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not fair. I mean, these guys, these voters, just take it personal sometimes. I mean, Roberto Alomar got pushed a year because he spit on a ref. That's kind of personal. And now this whole steroid performance-enhancing drug thingy here that these reporters, these writers have when voting, it's like, we're not going to vote for you if we think you did performance-enhancing drugs, but it's kind of a hypocritical statement. It's like I said, it's very personal because
It saved baseball.
well, yeah,
I mean, all of those people that are being accused of taking steroids, those are the people that I watched, and I don't consider them any less great for taking steroids. I mean, whatever steroids does, if it makes you stronger or whatever the situation is, I mean, I can be strong as hell and I still don't have like the hand-eye coordination to hit a home run.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, first of all, it wasn't a banned substance back then in the 90s. We do know mostly everybody used it, right? I mean, a vast majority of players. And although it's not proven, I can't give a specific statement for anybody. I'm almost positive that every professional athlete in every sport has taken some type of enhancement drug at some point. I mean, just the demand that professional sports have on a human body are insane, and don't even get me started on the competition. So it's kind of very hypocritical. Now you got Bud Selig coming in, who was the commissioner during the whole steroid era, which is why I'm telling you that this opens up a lot of doors. And now you have Pudge Rodriguez coming in. And not just that. Pudge Rodriguez obviously hasn't been proved to have steroids, but the best baseball player, I mean, I can't say this enough. The best baseball player of all time, Barry Bonds, is not a Hall of Famer because of some steroid use. I mean, let's be real. Regardless of the steroid use, Barry Bonds is the best player of all time. Roger Clemens is a 7-time Cy Young winner, Jay. 7-time. Think about how much that is.
They don't take away any of his Cy Youngs, but they won't let him in the Hall of Fame.
People don't go. I mean, God damn it. Jeff Bagwell is in the Hall of Fame. He has 4 All-Star games. Roger Clemens has 7 Cy Youngs. I mean, are you seeing the difference here? Seriously?
I mean, you guys almost tore my head off when I said that a lot of people get into Baseball Hall of Fame just based on collective stats. You play long enough and you're bound to do something good. I mean, if you're good enough to always be on the field, you're going to get your chances at bat, and all you do is just keep collecting hits. Before you know it, you have 3,000 hits, and there's no way they keep you at the Hall of Fame, unless you're Pete Rose.
Not just that, the voting is so broken that these people have this stigma about not voting for performance-enhancing drugs. Yet, to today, there are still writers that are voting for either Bonds and Clemens and not the other. Why would you vote for Bonds and not vote for Roger Clemens? Why would you vote for Roger Clemens and not vote for Bonds? There has been an improvement in the last couple of years. This year, only 7 writers did that stupidity. I'm going to call it as it is, a stupidity. Which is the least amount since both of these guys became eligible in the Hall of Fame ballot in 2013. I was looking up some research on this, and this is where I go why voting is kind of ridiculous sometimes, and why it gets personal. Some of the writers that vote here, Barry Rosner from the Daily Herald, he previously had voted for Barry Bonds, but not Roger Clemens, because he thought Bonds was a Hall of Famer before the use of steroids. But he wasn't sure on when Clemens started using. You can clearly see when Bonds did the transition. You can't see it for Clemens, so he won't vote for Clemens, but he will vote for Bonds. Now he's one of the writers that's actually voting for both, because since the induction of Bud Selig, it kind of nullifies the performance-enhancing drug issue in the voting. I have another writer.
What you're saying is, Packy, that it's not objective. Like it's totally subjective. It's kind of like, hey, you need to submit your votes today, and it's just kind of how you feel, and then you just make up a reason why you change your mind.
Exactly. I mean, I wrote an article about this a couple of years ago when Pedro Martinez was inducted into the Hall of Fame, which, by the way, was the same year that Craig Biggio was inducted in the Hall of Fame. And boy, there was a lot of support from the Houston fans. I expect that to happen again for Jeff Bagwell. So I was surprised at the amount of fans that were up there in New York. It was impressive. But getting back to topic, I have John Heyman from FanRags voted for Bonds and not Clemens because he says Bonds was a clear Hall of Famer, but only used steroids to keep himself in the spotlight. But Clemens used it to rejuvenate his aging career. Again, not objective, bro. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. And then finally, I have an Oakland A's beat writer, John Hickey. He didn't vote for Clemens because Clemens once threw a piece of a broken bat at Mike Piazza's direction. But I'm okay voting for Barry Bonds, but not for Roger Clemens for that reason, not specifically steroids. So it's kind of like, I don't know, they should really revise this voting. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous to me, and we haven't even gotten into the players that actually got voted into the Hall of Fame, which I have my 2 cents on that too.
Well, it seems like what you're telling me, and you're using the word voting, it's not necessarily the voting. They vote how they vote. It's kind of the system that they use for voting. So there's not an established criteria of what is considered a Hall of Famer. And for what it's worth, this is a different sport, but let me just hear me out on this one. I heard LaDainian Tomlinson doing an interview, and they asked him how he feels about being considered to go into the Hall of Fame. And he says, well, when I started playing football, I started playing, to be the best at my position, hoping to win a championship. And he says, this is why I think most young kids get into the sport. He didn't mention, when I started playing, my hope was to someday be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think a lot of people get into the game with the expectation of someday being in the Hall of Fame. You want to be the best at your position for as long as you play. You want to get some championships because everybody knows that a championship equals a ring, and a ring is something that you can put up in any restaurant, laundromat, or anything that you decide to own later on when you're done with baseball and decide to branch out into other careers. I don't know that it's going to make or break, any of these players. Several interesting things that you said there. I don't understand how the voting or the system works, and I'm glad you pointed out a few of these things. You said that if they get less than 5% of the vote in any of the years, that includes the first year too? I mean, that's
gone.
That's sort of ridiculous. See, that I don't agree with, because it looks like, by seeing some of the people that are on the ballot that can possibly be voted in, it looks like they fell behind on some of the voting. So even when next year's crop of available players comes around, a player like Trevor Hoffman was 1% off the vote to make it to the Hall of Fame. So just because, honorable mention or whatever you want to call it, he'll probably get in. He's going to get votes. And that means that someone, possibly someone good, won't get that 5%, and then they'll get kicked off in the first year. Are they ever eligible to come back after they get kicked off, or that's it?
No, it's actually funny that you mention it. Yes, they are. Not exactly back in the ballot, but they can get voted directly into the Hall of Fame by the Veterans Committee, the Baseball Hall of Fame Veterans Committee. They can actually go and oversee the ballot, and they can vote you in. These are the guys that actually even step in special occasions. Like, for example, when Roberto Clemente, when he passed away, he hadn't done his 10-year career yet, I believe. And he obviously wasn't 5 years past his retirement, because he never really retired. He passed away. They put him into the Hall of Fame right away. So they can override anything and go into special occasions. So they can put Jorge Posada in, for example. But that's a Veterans Committee. It's not made of writers. It's made of executives and some Hall of Fame inductees, a group of people. That actually even makes a little bit more sense than these writers voting, man.
Yeah, the whole thing about giving writers the power to vote for anything, writers can be very petty. Like you just said, some dude isn't voting in Roger Clemens because he threw a bat one time. So-and-so doesn't like a player because he never gave him an interview, so I just won't vote for him. There's a team obligation to give a certain media access, but there's not an obligation for players. If they don't want to talk to you, then live with it. I mean, players can be petty too. If you ever did me wrong, why would I ever give you a scoop?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, you have a beat writer for the Oakland A's that has a vote. No disrespect to the Oakland A's, no disrespect to the position of a beat writer, but for voting a player to the Hall of Fame, how can you say a beat writer is more qualified than a player or an executive that's already in the Hall of Fame, that has been around the game inside and out since the beginning? You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's just something. And look, getting back to the topic of the system, if it's objective or subjective, you want to see how subjective this is?
I mean, it's clearly not. I don't know if there's much more for us to talk about there, but make your points on the players that got in.
Yeah, and I'm going to start with Pudge Rodriguez. It's going to take me – I'm going to do a perfect transition here.
Go ahead.
Ivan Rodriguez, Pudge Rodriguez, he gets voted in his first year in the ballot.
Okay.
If you watch the guy play, if you see his numbers, he's a clear Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. Probably one of the best defensive catchers, if not the best of all time. Guy was clearly amazing. I mean, you saw him playing, and there was no question he was going to be a Hall of Famer. He deserves to be a Hall of Famer.
I don't even know what you mean by that, because, as we said, it just kind of comes down to what a reporter's feeling at the time. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm getting into that.
Go ahead.
But Jose Canseco, who has been pretty accurate with his accusations regarding steroid use on other players, said that he actually helped Ivan Rodriguez also with steroids. On top of that, after testing started in 2005, Ivan Rodriguez lost 22 pounds. He said it was to improve his defense, but kind of mysterious. So, there's no concrete evidence, but there was some talk about it. And he gets voted in the first time. Now you have Mike Piazza, the best, stats are there, the best offensive catcher of all time. He had to wait 4 years before he got inducted because of some false allegations that were never proven or any hard facts regarding steroid use. So again, it's a matter of opinion. So what applies for Mike Piazza doesn't apply for Pudge Rodriguez? How does that make any sense?
Apparently not.
But, like I said, Ivan Rodriguez has – I don't even have to get into the stats with this guy. Do I really have to get into the awards? If anybody saw him playing, the guy was amazing. He was lights out. He was excellent. So, clearly, he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. By the way, it was very touching when he received the phone call. I saw the video for the Hall of Fame. And it reminded me of what you just mentioned earlier about it's not a guy's prime – it's not their prime goal to get into the Hall of Fame. But I think once you're nearing the end of your career and you already have a whole story behind your career, I think you start thinking about it as a possibility. So, you can't tell me David Ortiz is not thinking about the Hall of Fame. Of course, Vladimir Guerrero was thinking about the Hall of Fame when he retired, and so did these guys. It's pretty much the answer. It's all your sacrifices that you've done your entire life paying off.
I agree with you to a certain extent. I mean, when it comes down to the last years of your career and people start mentioning it and you figure, okay, well, I played this long, I didn't have a significant injury, I never got in any real trouble, so why not? Especially when you're a player, for whatever of the two reasons, whether you already accomplished everything like David Ortiz, where he has championships already and it's just like, one more milestone, or you never got the championship rings, and then you just figure, well, it wasn't always my fault. Like, I could only do so much. I only get 4 chances to bat, and they'll walk me 3 times because they're afraid of what I'm going to do. So, like a Barry Bonds, for example, you're thinking, like, there's not much else left for me. This is, my ultimate legacy, to go down with a bust in the Hall of Fame. Talk to me about the 2 other guys that got in briefly so we can talk about some snubs and then we can move on to something else.
Yeah, Jeff Bagwell. Jeff Bagwell didn't have a lot of overall individual awards, but this guy's career was amazing. I mean, Jeff Bagwell was a model of consistency, and he was a different mold of a first baseman. Only first baseman with a 30-30, 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases more than once. Only first baseman with 400 home runs, 200 stolen bases, and only player to achieve 6 straight years with 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, 100 runs, and 100 walks. Impressive career overall. I think Jeff Bagwell is well deserved of the Hall of Fame ballot. kudos to him, and congratulations to him and his family. Now, getting to Tim Raines, who was on his 10th year, his last year of the Hall of Fame ballot. I understand. To me, I feel like they put him in the Hall of Fame because it was his last year, and his name has been, just wandering around the ballot for so long. It's improved every year, but, I mean, he got in the Hall of Fame with an 86%. That's ridiculous. I don't even think Tim Raines is supposed to be in the Hall of Fame in the first place. I mean, the guy was a great baseball player. I honestly did not see his prime because I was not alive during his prime, which was in the early 80s. Yeah, I was born in 87, so. But, I mean, I'm looking over the guy's career. He was clearly one of the best at at being a leadoff batter. But if you look overall, I mean, is he really a Hall of Famer? Tim Raines, a leadoff hitter his entire career, batted under 300. On base percentage, career-wise, 385. That's 119th overall. 119th overall. He did not get to 3,000 hits. I mean, a leadoff hitter didn't get to 3,000 hits. It's kind of like, I don't know, man. It's like being a home run hitter and not getting to 500. It's a milestone that you kind of got to reach. And on top of that, his biggest accomplishment is his stolen bases. He's 5th all time, which is not bad. It's great. But, I mean, is this guy really a Hall of Famer? I mean, is this guy really a guy that changed the game? Is he really a guy that marked the difference? I mean, his best years were 6 straight years in Montreal in the early 80s after I looked it up. He led the league in stolen bases. He went to All-Star games. I mean, he went to 7 All-Star games his entire career. 6 of them were in that stretch. So, I don't know. I'm not convinced, man. And what hurts me the most is that Vladimir Guerrero could have gone in or Trevor Hoffman could have gone in, but they went with him to not take him off the ballot.
Okay. I see the points you're making, but some of the points in favor are very compelling. 100 triples, 150 home runs, that's no big deal. But 600 stolen bases, dude. More than actually. This one is 70 steals. 70 steals or more stolen bases in 6 consecutive seasons. Dude, that's a lot of steals. Like, I don't know what was going on back then, but who steals 70 bases now? I mean, is it Billy Hamilton, the fastest dude now? And he gets what, like, 40 plus, scratching 50 maybe? 70 steals is amazing.
Yeah, nobody does it. Baseball has changed a lot. I mean, the players have changed a lot. It's not the same. But regardless, I mean, if you look at overall, I mean, Hall of Famer, Jay, I mean, I'm not taking credit away from the guy. The guy was awesome. He was great. But, I mean, let's look at the stigma that MLB has posted for the Hall of Fame. You got people like Roger Clemens, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, now Vladimir Guerrero, Trevor Hoffman still looking out. Tim Raines? Really? Really? I don't know. No hate against Tim Raines. I just think there's more deserving people. I'm sorry.
I think I understand what you're saying. So, for 10 years, he wasn't good enough to make it in. Like, there were years that
right?
I think only one person got into a Hall of Fame one year. I forget the year it was exactly.
There was a year that nobody made it.
Right. So he was there. He was amongst the possible candidates there. He had all the same stats because obviously he stopped playing a long time ago. And you vote nobody in? No one. And then, in a year where, like you said, Vladimir Guerrero was only a few percentage points away. Trevor Hoffman was exactly 1 percentage point away from getting into the Hall of Fame. For Hoffman, it would have been his second year, Vladimir on his first year. You put in Tim Raines, Connor, it feels like the honorable mention. Like, just kind of put him in there because what the heck else are we going to do with him? Are we going to keep doing this to him? And it's kind of like I said.
Voting.
Yeah, it's like I said. They're catching up. Like, I don't see how any of these like percentages get any lower. At some point, they're going to get higher. So obviously, these 3 people are not going to be in the ballot anymore. So Bagwell, Raines, and Rodriguez, and then you're going to have new people coming up to the ballot, and then you're going to have to catch up on people that are behind. Like Edgar Martinez is now at 58.6%. That was this year, considering that a lot of votes went to other players. He's been on the ballot for 8 years. Next year is going to be 9. Sammy Sosa, what is it? Sorry. Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, and Roger Clemens, they're at 5 years, so they still got some time. I'm thinking they're just going to, like, punish them and then put them in last minute. And the year that they do put them in, like, if they all go in the same year on their 10th year, kind of like a Tim Raines, then that's going to hurt the crop of, people that come in that year, whoever those people have been that have been retired for 5 years at that moment. It's a little silly, to be honest with you. There's an interesting name here, Lee Smith. I have no idea when Lee Smith played baseball. He's been on the ballot for 15 years. How does that happen?
Well, because the changes were made, the changes to being 10 years were made. I don't remember the specific year, to be honest. But if you were already on the ballot before the change to 10, it was 15. So probably Lee Smith is going to disappear after this year. To be honest, I'm not sure who he is either. If he's been there in the ballot for 15 years, Mean has been retired for 20. 20 years ago, we were very young. And 20 years ago, meaning he was old, so I'm not sure who he is. But you got guys like Manny Ramirez, Kurt Schilling, Mike Mussina, Gary Sheffield. To me, all these guys are better baseball players and better careers than Tim Raines. Regardless, Tim Raines is in. But
those are very good players that I actually saw play, and as far as I can remember, they may have had some character issues, but none of them any, like, performance-enhancing stuff. I think Manny one time had, like, I don't know if it was like a fertility drug thing that kind of looked, or steroids, or they used it to I don't understand what the point of that thing was. But these are players that, like you say, man, they're obviously, or at least to my eyes, me that was able to be alive and of conscious mind to see them at that time, these are people that I was able to see, and I think they're better. Manny, by the way, he's his first year there, so he has time. They'll catch up to him. Fred McGriff is on his 9th year. Next year will be his last. You think he makes it in?
Fred McGriff?
Right.
No, I don't think so. He's way too far behind. But, the positive thing for all these supposedly quote-unquote steroid users, because I'm not, or better said, quote-unquote cheaters, because I don't consider them cheaters if they did it in an era where everybody did it. Even the ones that were bad baseball players did steroids, even the sucky ones. But now that Ivan Rodriguez is in, Bud Selig is in, and Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds have gone over 50% for the first time ever in their 5-year in the ballots, which will probably go up to 60 next year, and so on, I expect to see these quote-unquote steroid users in the Hall of Fame eventually. There's no way Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens get to the year 10 without getting in. And once they get in, it's going to open the door for Manny. It's going to open the door for maybe Larry Walker, and so on and so on. And whoever comes in that might be tainted with steroid use. Now, if you have
15 years from now, A-Rod.
Yeah, and A-Rod, you never know. I mean, that's a good, that's very good that you mentioned that, because besides the fact, all the things that has happened with A-Rod, all the things that have been said, all the drama and the conferences and I was young and naive and I made a mistake. A-Rod is probably one of the best all-time players in the game. Before, after steroid use, minor leagues, Dominican Winter League, wherever you want to see it, A-Rod is an all-timer. He should be in the Hall of Fame eventually. That's going to be a great topic of discussion when his time comes. And he's probably not going to be a first ballot. I'm okay with that. If you're a steroid user, don't go in the first ballot. Punishment would be, suffer a couple of years, but you got to get in eventually.
I don't agree with that. I see where you're going, but that is the stupidest thing in the world. Steroids should not affect your ranking in the Hall of Fame.
No. Wait.
You get punished during your playing career. They give you the 50 games, 100 games, whatever it is, until you're finally forced to retire. And that's what the rules are. Nothing says, you get banned 50 games for steroids, you can't make it to the Hall of Fame. It's dumb. I don't agree with that.
I was gonna say that if you did it after the rule change and you were suspended, you could have a, like that kind of type of punishment added into it. But you're right. I think you're right. I'm not. It was a dumb comment. But regarding Alex Rodriguez, though, they made an example with him, so they got to stick to the example. I mean, after all the stuff that they went through, if you put him in the first ballot, it's kind of like everything we just did. We were just fucking around with you, A-Rod. It's a troll. It's a troll, but you're going into the Hall of Fame first ballot. So A-Rod's case is kind of particular. They're going to have to make him suffer a bit because they have already made him suffer a lot. So if you made an example with him, you got to keep it going, right?
So Sammy Sosa is the cutoff point this year. 8.6% of the voting went to Sammy, so he gets to participate another year in the ballot. Jorge Posada was the highest vote getter to not be able to return unless, as you mentioned, he gets voted back by the committee. Of the names that are here, which of them do you think deserve Hall of Fame consideration? I'm not going to mention everyone, but Maglio Ordonez, Edgar Renteria, Jason Varitek, Orlando Cabrera, Derek Lee, maybe Carlos Guillen. Not a lot of.
Luckily now we're old enough to know most of the guys on the ballot, because 10 years ago the guys on the ballot, on the back end of the ballot, there were guys that played when we weren't watching the game. But out of these, I can only see Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds,
No, they're still on the ballot.
Mussina.
I mean, some of the people that are going to be off the ballot next year because they didn't get enough votes that you think should have at least been in consideration. Outside of Posada.
I think the only one is Posada, and it's interesting to see what happens with Sammy. He's at 8%. If he dips, I think that's disrespectful. I mean, my God, Sammy Sosa.
All right, so on that note, we're going to end it. Let's just congratulate the people that got in and leave some of this conversation for next year when we discuss who gets in and, again, who gets snubbed. Jeff Bagwell, Tim Raines, Ivan Rodriguez, congratulations. Welcome to the Hall of Fame, as well as former Commissioner Bud Selig.